What's up, guys? Welcome back to the simulation. I want to talk about how a tiny group of people you never voted for are quietly rewriting the code of reality, the rules of work, of money, of your life, your kids' lives, and what it even means to be human. They call it innovation and abundance. But what they've really done is load the dice so they are always on the winning side and we carry the loss. In this episode, I want to show you how the Compute Cartel is hardwiring your future while we're all busy distracted by layoffs, cost of living, and a housing crisis. There's a word that keeps popping up in Silicon Valley like it's a new religious chant: abundance.
World of abundance, and the abundant world of abundant
into an abundance model.
And abundance of
abundance.
Everybody has abundance.
Migrate to an age of abundance.
Prosperity for all. And abundance.
Maximum abundance.
Be an age of abundance. Abundance.
Complete abundance of
Time of abundance.
The world of abundance.
abundant or abundant.
Sustainable abundance.
Age of abundance and
Abundance Summit.
In your abundance book.
Creating the world of abundance.
Material abundance.
Abundant future.
Great abundance.
Sustainable abundance. So that's abundance for all.
Post-abundance.
Unbelievable abundance.
They roll it out on conference stages, in glossy manifestos, interviews, where everyone is laughing a little too hard at each other's jokes. On paper, it sounds nice. Who doesn't want abundance? But then you look at who's preaching it. One of the loudest guys at the moment, who helped build one of the first web browsers back when the internet still made modem noises. Marc Andreessen. He cashed out, moved into venture capital, and now his fund sits on tens of billions. It's in everything: social platforms, crypto, AI, fintech, the pipes and apps that you use every day. He recently dropped his big techno-optimist manifesto. And in that document, he basically says technology is pure good. It doesn't take your job. It doesn't increase inequality. It doesn't damage the environment. It doesn't hurt your kids. It's our savior. The only thing that can pull humanity into a better future. The real problem, in his view, isn't a runaway AI or corporate capture or any of that. The enemies apparently are words like sustainability, tech responsibility, social responsibility, ethics, trust and safety. Anything that looks like a brake pedal. Anything that says, hang on a second, what is this technology actually doing to people? Gets framed as an attack on progress. It's a neat trick. If you declare technology as sacred and only ever good, anyone who wants to regulate it, slow it down, or ask annoying questions about its side effects, well, they become a heretic, an enemy of the future. And the thing that bothers me is this isn't just some drunk late night blog post. This is the worldview of someone whose money and influence is wired into half of the infrastructure that we rely on. When someone like that says we're under attack, we must push forward at all costs, what they're really saying, we're going to keep building and deploying this stuff on your lives with or without your consent. And if you complain, you're against progress. So that's the sermon. Repeat it again and again. Abundance. Technology is the savior. Anyone who disagrees is anti-human. So who gets into the rooms when governments decide the rules? Because here's the thing no one's really sitting with. You didn't vote for these people. You never saw their name on a ballot. Most people couldn't pick them out of a lineup, but they are sitting in on meetings where cabinet positions are discussed. They're weighing in on who should run these key agencies.
I was in the meetings at a bunch of these companies, including Facebook, where it's like, okay, we need to define hate speech. We need to define misinformation. Right? I've been involved in some of the interviewing process for some of the officials coming in. The caliber of a lot of the people that I met has been very high. A lot of the appointments that have come down in the last 2 weeks of sort of the next level down staff, I think, have been very impressive people. And I think that flow of talent seems very strong.
They're funding political campaigns and think tanks that magically come up with bills that just happen to line up with their portfolio and their interests. They sit in both chairs. On one side, they're the investor who just started quietly charging junk fees in the app. On the other, they're whispering in the ear of the politician who decides whether regulators can do anything about it. And when the same tiny group of people fund the companies, lobby the regulators, donate to the campaigns, and shape the narratives on the platforms, do you really need some cartoon conspiracy? Or is the bias baked into the wiring? So when you see a consumer protection agency soften a penalty for a flashy new fintech, or watch a rule get watered down that would have forced a crypto platform to reimburse people after they were scammed, or you read that an agency meant to guard against junk fees and predatory loans suddenly has its wings clipped, you can pretend that it's all coincidence. But it's not. You need to recognize that it is exactly what you'd expect if the compute cartel is quietly extending itself into the legal and financial plumbing underneath everything. You don't have to take over a government. You just become their default advisor. The person the president calls when they want to understand something about AI. The person a minister calls when a new fintech law is on the table. The guy journalists call when they need a quote for their new article about innovation and abundance. If you win behind the scenes, you don't need a podium. You get something better. You get to design the rule book for a game you're already winning. Okay, let's leave the boardrooms for a second, because while all that is happening, here's what the ground level looks like.
Okay, so there's a lot of conversations about AI. I recently lost my job to AI, ChatGPT. I'm a copywriter, and small businesses basically realized that that service is less expensive than hiring me, even though I don't make very much money, which sucked. So I'm applying to jobs, and it's really, really, really hard to get a job right now. Like, really hard. I don't know where. They said a labor shortage. Where? Who? No. That lies. I finally get like an exciting prospect, and I'm like, they want a content writer. That's great. They're actually going to pay me a decent amount, or a livable wage. A livable wage. This is not something to call home about, but like, anyways, so I got this exciting new job prospect. They seem really eager to interview me. They need a writer just like me, but I can't really figure out what they want me to write. And then I figured it out. They want me to train AI to do my job. And I'm going to have to take it. That's the worst part. Is I'm going to have to take it because I cannot afford my apartment. I'm about to eat a can of garbanzo beans. I'm selling off my possessions. I'm in no place to turn down a job, even though it's literally going to take away the prospect at me finding a job in the future. But I don't have a way out.
Just lost my job to AI. Got a phone call from these two tech guys that I work for. They're so excited to tell me about what this new AI can do. 6 months ago, I was given an AI counterpart. They upgraded the software. Oh, and now it can do all your tasks. It's so sophisticated. So I'm like, all right, why are you telling me? And they're like, oh, we don't need to renew your contract. I was training the AI to replace me. By far my highest paying contract. And they said it like, so now you can go do what you really wanted.
Last month, I applied for a job at Woolworths, having recently been unemployed. And the first part of the process was fairly normal. It was used to normal fill out of forms on their website for recruitment. And then the step that comes after that is an AI interview where a chatbot asks you questions, you have to answer them. And I thought, you know what, I get it, I guess this isn't too terrible. And then the second stage came around and it was another AI interview where I had to record answers and send them into a chatbot.
I want to hop right into it. As you may have heard, we've been restructuring parts of the firm to adopt AI and alleviate some pretty high operational expenses. Unfortunately, that's led us to make some difficult decisions, including the immediate termination of your role. This is not based on your performance as an employee. This is a firm-wide decision impacting hundreds of workers.
So my role has just been taken over by AI. I laugh because, like, if someone said this to me like 5-10 years ago, I'd be like, you are joking. You must be joking. But I'm not joking.
Have y'all ever lost your job to AI or a robot? Well, that's what's happened to me now. I just found out, well, I'm not losing my job, but I'm getting laid off for like 9 to 14 months over here at UPS. Now, I work part-time here, and they said they're bringing in a robot to replace my job on the sort aisle. And unloaders send packages to me. I sort them out to the loaders. Well, now they decided if they put this big machine in here, they could knock out all the sorters and a robot will scan the packages and send them where they're supposed to go.
People recording little funeral speeches for the jobs that they thought they were going to retire in. This is happening while some of the biggest companies in the world are making record profits and revenue. The logos are all the ones you know. The online retail giant that likes to call itself Earth's most customer-centric company turns around and cuts tens of thousands of jobs. Logistics firms slash headcount after signing monstrous automation deals. These warehouses and factories are automating so quickly. Media conglomerates buy up studios and then gut staff weeks later, having just before that sent out letters about how they're the heart of the company. And they all give the same explanation: efficiency, right sizing, focusing on our core mission, investing in AI. You see it written in their internal memos. We have strong conviction that AI agents will change how we work. There will be billions of these agents. We will need fewer people doing some of the jobs that are being done today. They're not even hiding it. What they're saying, we're firing you now for a future we hope will exist later. The crazy part? Even the CEOs of these AI companies admit the tech isn't fully there yet. They say things like, I think probably within a year or two we'll have an AI that can behave like a mid-level engineer. Probably, maybe. But don't get me wrong, I think they will. They will succeed. Because I think this goes way deeper than we can imagine. Look at the way they've drip-fed us technology for decades. Every year, the new iPhone gets released that is only 0.5% better than last year's model. Now, here's where we start to discuss DARPA. The components for the smartphone were seeded by government defense research agencies to help push this technology out into the public in a scalable and affordable way that the public could adopt. Things like micro-electromechanical system sensors, tiny accelerometers and gyros, these are what let phones auto-rotate, let them operate. It's what we built them from. A DARPA contract helped an Iranian-American electrical engineer develop integrated RF networking chips that later underpinned a huge chunk of the Wi-Fi and mobile wireless hardware. ARPANET, the direct ancestor of today's internet, was a DARPA project launched in 1969. The research program that created TCP/IP, the protocol that basically is the internet, was also initiated and funded by DARPA in the 70s. The GPS, Global Positioning System, was a broader US Department of Defense project, but DARPA ran key programs to shrink these GPS receivers from 16-kilo monsters that we used to have to these kilogram handheld units that we all used to have in our car. SRI International. They spun their work into a company called Siri, which Apple then acquired and turned it into the iPhone's voice assistant. DARPA is widely credited with helping create and mature unmanned aerial vehicles. Its projects on autonomous aircraft and surveillance platforms laid a lot of the groundwork for today's drone tech. Long before Elon's Neuralink came around, DARPA funded implanted brain-computer interfaces that had been around back in the 90s. It's been around forever. They've just wrapped it up with a neat little bow on top and called it new. By the early 2000s, we already had monkeys and humans moving cursors and robotic arms with their mind. This isn't new technology. Simply put, DARPA has been designing the technology we use on a daily basis and dripping it out into the public for decades. They do this for two reasons. The military-industrial complex angle. This way, they stay decades ahead of the public in the realms of technology and warfare.
We talked to them about this, and the meetings were absolutely horrifying, and we came out basically deciding we had to endorse Trump. They said, look, AI is one of these AI is a technology basically that the government is going to completely control. This is not going to be a startup thing. They actually said flat out to us, don't do AI startups. Like, don't fund AI startups. It's not something that we're going to allow to happen. They're not going to be allowed to exist. There's no point. They basically said AI is going to be a game of 2 or 3 big companies working closely with the government, and we're going to basically wrap them in a, I'm paraphrasing, but we're going to basically wrap them in a government cocoon. We're going to protect them from competition. We're going to control them, and we're going to dictate what they do. And then I said, I don't understand how you're going to lock this down so much, because like the math for, AI is like out there and it's being taught everywhere. And, they literally said, during the Cold War, we classified entire areas of physics, and took them out of the research community, and like entire branches of physics basically went dark and didn't proceed. And that if we decide we need to, we're going to do the same thing to the math underneath AI.
Second, for the companies they see this technology through out into the public domain, it's the best business model. If they dropped the iPhone 14 a decade ago, they would leave billions on the table in revenue. It's just smart business modeling. Milk your consumers for everything they're worth over decades. So why do we really think AI is any different? Do we really think that ChatGPT is the pinnacle of the AI architectures that we have? Or are they developing ChatGPT 15 while they tell us they're working on 6 and 7? Remember that LLMs are just one type of AI. How do you know that the large language models aren't just being used to train an AI model that they've been working on in some black book project somewhere for the last decade? How do we know how advanced they really are? They keep it to themselves. They don't tell us. Because if you can use something for free or at the company's financial loss, which OpenAI is very much running at a loss right now, you are the product. Open source AI versus a corporate developed AI versus government, military, industrial complex developed AI are all very different things. And they're using our taxpayers' money to fund it, to cover any losses, because we can't stop. Otherwise, China will run away in front of us. So let's translate that back to today's job economy. Real human beings with real bills. They have real kids. They're being laid off today to fund bets on a version of AI that might be good enough tomorrow. They could afford to hire humans and test out AI, but they're choosing not to because there's something else that happens at the same time. Share prices jump. Announce 10,000 heads rolling. The stock pops 10% the next day. Wall Street literally rewards human suffering. If you're in the top 10% who own most of the stock, that's great. Your net worth goes up when other people's lives are detonated. If you're on the receiving end of the restructuring, that abundance they keep promising starts to look a lot like a polite word for, we don't need you anymore. The headline layoffs are just the theatrical part. The part the media can put into a neat little infographic and box it up and put it out to you. Maybe it's fear-mongering, maybe it's not. What doesn't get talked about is the shadow layoff system. The contractors whose contracts just don't get renewed. The part-timers whose hours evaporate. The performance-managed exits. The teams that are told to reapply for their own roles at a lower salary under a new title. those don't trigger the same legal reporting requirements. They don't hit the same dashboards politicians like to wave around. But for the people at the end of them, they hurt just as much. And altogether, you get millions of people pushed out of work in a very short window. How short? We'll have to wait and see. But if it's very quickly, this is going to get bad. Seniors with 20 years in suddenly finding out they're too experienced and overqualified to get a job at a supermarket. Graduates staring down 10, 12, 15% unemployment in the first year after graduating. They're competing against people with 2 years' experience for something that used to be entry level. Meanwhile, they can't pay the rent. They're drowning in student debt. How are these people going to survive? There are retirees sneaking back into the workforce because their pension or social security doesn't even cover the rent. Never mind food and utilities. Everyone is fighting over a shrinking pile of stable jobs, and it's only going to get worse. You've got AI writing the resumes and you've got AI picking the people for jobs. While we're all distracted by the layoffs, something else is happening in the background. Companies are quietly using AI and algorithms to tune what we get paid. We already know this works because of the gig economy. Rideshare apps, they adjust pay offers in real time based on your behavior. If their models think you're desperate, maybe you've been online for hours, maybe you're always accepting the lowball jobs, they will test how little they can get away paying you before you say no. It's not a person sitting there doing that, it's code. Now imagine that logic applied to your full-time salary. Your employer already knows your pay. They know your mortgage from the employee loan scheme. They know your location. They know your commute, your family situation, your online patterns. In a world where millions of people are competing for fewer roles, what exactly stops a big company from using advanced technology like this to work out the lowest number you're still likely to accept and then calling that market rate? You get worse pay, worse benefits, less equity. While the PowerPoint deck talks about data-driven compensation, and if you don't take the deal, well, there will be someone else out there who will. A new graduate with debt, a 50-year-old who just burned through their redundancy pay, a senior, a retiree whose pension no longer covers cost of living, a displaced engineer whose entire team was laid off last quarter and they're told to reapply for their job under a different title. It's a race to the bottom, overseen by a spreadsheet and an algorithm that has no idea what a human life looks like outside of the graph. Here's the part that really fries my brain. We are drowning in technology. We've never had more compute, more productive capacity, more logistics, more everything. If you look at it from a purely material point of view, we absolutely could be living in a world that feels abundant. But that's not how it feels on the ground, is it? You've got people posting that their home insurance doubled in a year, despite the fact they've never made a claim. Rent spiking, groceries creeping up week by week. $100 buys you nothing now. It used to cover half your shopping. Power bills are doing whatever they want. Meanwhile, the official line is, don't worry, inflation is only at 3%. Only, they leave out the part where it was 5 or 6 last year, 7 or 8 the year before. They're not stacking the compounding. It's just a big manipulation. They don't explain that most of us are living in the accumulated costs of the last 5 years, not just this year. They're manipulating the truth to make you feel like your wage is still worthwhile. And a lot of that inflation isn't some act of God. It's manufactured. You've got banks caught in scandals paying fines that sound big in the headlines but are tiny compared to the profits they extracted. 1% of what they made. You've got CEOs on earnings calls bragging about passing on inflation to consumers like it's a flex. Literally telling investors, don't worry, we can raise prices and these idiots will just pay it. And they're not wrong. We do. We keep paying it. So let's add this up. The housing costs are up. Insurance is up. Food's up. Energy's up. And wages are not keeping pace. Life expectancy is flat and dropping in some places. Wonder what's caused that. The birth rates are absolutely tanking. People aren't having kids anymore, and I don't blame them. If you can't afford to buy groceries, What happens when you have another mouth to feed? If you don't see a career path for yourself, let alone a casual job stacking shelves in a supermarket, would you want to have a child that would never be able to work or have a normal career? What's the future going to look like for them? This idea that they're going to grow up the same way that we did, that world's ending right now. It's not going to look like that in 20 years, 15, 10, hell, maybe 5. What will the jobs look like? Will jobs exist? Or will it all be AI and robotics and everyone left fighting over the scraps, the leftover jobs, whatever they might be? Or will this be some billionaire-controlled asset portfolio and you are a number on the balance sheet? Is this the world we want for our children? Is this the world we want for ourselves? And while this is all taking place, you have the biggest companies on the planet hitting trillion-dollar valuations. The system is clearly capable of producing abundance. It's just not obligated to share it with you. Techno-optimism starts to sound less like we care about humanity and more like we would like to keep building enormous stuff without you getting in our way. That's why sustainability and ethics, social responsibility, they're cast as enemies because they are the few levers we have left to say, hang on, what is this technology doing to people? What are their lives going to look like in the future? If you can brand those levers as anti-progress, you get to keep the game exactly as it is. So where does this leave us? On one side, you've got a small group of people, many of them in the same social and financial circles, sitting on unimaginable wealth and compute. They go to private banquets with kings and presidents. They sit on the boards of companies that intermediate almost every part of our lives. What we read, where our money goes, who you're matching with on dating apps, how your news feed is curated, what our kids see on their screens. They write manifestos declaring themselves techno-optimists and talk about a future of 50 billion humans living out amongst the stars. These people are so far removed from reality of the everyday person. You've got very normal people laid off at 50 and suddenly told they're overqualified for a job at a local supermarket. Graduates, they're crying on TikTok because they can't even get an interview for an entry-level role. You've got retirees living in caravans and tents because their pension doesn't stretch far enough to cover their rent. Parents are watching basics double in price while being told inflation is under control. And in between those two worlds sits the thing we talked about in the AI psychosis episode, linked below. The new cathedrals, data centers, GPU farms, these AI models and algorithmic management systems, all being quietly built out in the background with your taxpayer money. You're covering the losses. We're told we have to just keep rolling forward, otherwise China will get ahead. We can't have that. I don't know, maybe we can't. It's complicated. But you're paying for it. You're covering the losses. These windowless boxes humming in industrial parks, while the billboard out the front talks about innovation and abundance. These data centers, the future is going to live inside of them. Then we see a room of elites and CEOs of companies within this web of AI infrastructure. They're being interviewed, telling us that this is going to be fantastic and there will be so much abundance. Abundance, there's that word again. The way those rooms translate into your job, your wage, your cost of living, and the stories you're being told about why you should be grateful for it. And that's the wildest part. You're being told you must be grateful. Grateful that AI will free you from your boring job to focus on higher level tasks. Whatever that means, as if you asked to have your only source of income automated away. Grateful that dynamic pricing gives you such a personalized experience. How wonderful. As if you enjoy paying more when the algorithm realizes that you're desperate. Grateful that abundance, it's coming any day now. Even as your own life feels more precarious and more squeezed, you can't afford anything. I'm not telling you I have the answer. I don't. I'm just the guy on YouTube trying to map out what this is going to look like in the future. What are our lives going to be like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? What are the lives of your kids going to look like? But I do have one question I want to leave you with. If the people who worship abundance keep designing systems that manufacture scarcity on purpose? At what point do we stop calling them visionaries and start admitting we're living under a cartel that's building a new religion? A religion where the offering on the altar isn't goats or grain or incense. Not anymore. It's you. If you made it this far, thanks for hanging out and watching. It means a lot. If you learned anything interesting, you'd like to see more, stay tuned for the next episode. Likes, comments, subscribe down below. Means a lot. Helps me bring you more of these videos with more weird ideas just like this. And remember, stay curious and question everything.